I think what's even interesting about you is that because you've had access and exposure to some of the most influential pastors in the space, your
Yeah.
perspective is unique.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think even speaking into that in the sense of, I don't know, maybe for me, you see a lot of churches that try to do things that, hey, Life Church does it. And it's like, or there's
Yeah.
things that Life Church does or care, these other churches do that other churches don't do. Like, for instance,
Yep.
I always talk about with meta ads, plan
Mhm.
your, it's okay, it's fine, but it's not the way that you should do it. And no one else is doing ads like that. And
Yeah.
if you look at the one of the largest churches in America, which is Life Church, and how they run their meta ads, it's find a problem, find a pain point,
Yep.
talk to it, and then provide resources, content, courses, whatever, and
Yeah.
then get them in the funnel. And then if they eventually show up or get engaged, great. But
Mhm.
the purpose first is to serve, right?
Yep. Yeah. And, yeah, I think that's getting more and more important in 26 too. So, yeah, that's huge, man. I love it. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think those are great
Any
angles, and I totally agree.
let me ask you this. Let's start with this. What do you feel like maybe say in the last, and we were briefly talking prelude to our podcast, which always happens, in which there's always seems to be some great content that doesn't get recorded. But we were talking about some different approaches. What do you feel like the biggest change you've seen when it comes to content, specifically talking, in around churches and or pastors' content? What do you feel like the biggest shift has been that you feel like a lot of churches and or pastors are haven't caught up to yet, or maybe they're missing out on?
Mm,
And that, just from your experience in what you've been around the game for what, say 8, 10 years in this,
yeah.
in this space, working with pastors and podcasts and content. What do you feel like those things are?
Yeah, there's been a few things. So first, we all lived through that era where Life churches started posting clips from their sermons, and then Craig started going viral on TikTok because it was just a clip from his sermon that went viral. Um, and then the bunch of SaaS startups built products to do that, where it just auto
Right.
clips sermons into clips and stuff like that. Well, even Life Church and many other large churches now, the return on investment on that strategy is actually like dying.
Hmm.
Like the clips that where Craig used to get 20 or 30,000 likes on an Instagram reel of him preaching, now it's getting significantly less. And that strategy is like a guaranteed win less and less often.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that is that's a significant change. The other
You feel like that's
significant
because it's
oh
familiarity, like it's becoming more common, so people are used to it across the board, or like kind of
I
dive into
think,
what's the why? What's the reason?
yeah, the biggest difference is the quality of content just on the short form video apps has dramatically increased since 2020.
It's
So,
true.
pretty much all of the short form content that we watch now is, like, made for short form or edited up for short form, where, like, back then, it was just, like, any content that's semi decent gets some
Yeah.
good visibility,
Yeah.
where, like yeah, now it's inundated. So, I think it's just a supply demand thing, and the supply quality has gotten much better, but our sermon quality
Yeah.
sermons have stayed the same for the last 5 years because sermons are sermons, and that's what we
Yeah.
like, so we're not, like, dramatically overhauling,
Yeah.
that art. So I think that's it, and that's where you see like guys like Josh Howerton, where like they have the podcast studio set up, and
Yeah.
that's what's going viral for pastors on
Yeah.
TikTok and Reels and stuff now is like short clips specifically made for TikTok with
Yeah.
hooks that are like some viral video or whatever. Like if you're gonna start making short form content, you're really gonna try to win at that game. You've got to start with that from the get go. Otherwise, it's just
Mm.
man, I 99% of churches don't need to be making that kind of content or spending significant resources on that. They need to be running ads with those kind of financial
Really?
resources. So,
Really?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you think, okay, that's an interesting thought. I can't say that I've um I've heard that thought. So are you saying that if if a church is looking, okay, what's the next, like we're on YouTube, we've got a decent social media presence, we're posting clips from Sundays, we're kind of running that play. Hey, we want to
Mhm.
go to the next level. And if the next, if the next decision is a podcast or some kind of making content specifically for social media, you would say ads first and then, you know, talking to the camera or podcast type situation?
I think it's just a resource limit question.
Yeah.
I was talking to a church the other day and well, this was a couple months ago now, but I think it was before you and I even met. Otherwise, I would have sent them your direction. But I was talking to a church and they have $1,500 a month to spend on
Okay.
all things social media and outreach. And this is a 3 location church. So
Okay.
I will address the budget question later with them,
Yeah.
where like, hey, maybe this should be 15,000, not 1,500. Anyways, but so they only had $1,500 to spend, and they were spending all 1,500 of it on a part-time social media manager that was posting 3 times or twice a week and getting 10 likes on each post.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like those $1,500 a month could go
For
so
sure.
much further
For
if you run a lead magnet campaign like you and I were talking about before this, like
Yeah.
run some kind of strategic ad campaign where it's like, we're going to turn people and
Yeah.
impressions into an audience that we actually own rather than trying to play the game of organic social media. Because like for most organizations, when it comes to organic social media, the house always wins. So no
Yeah.
matter how much value you extract from Facebook and Instagram, they extract more value out of your time, your energy, and your impressions that you're giving them just through ad spend and all that kind of stuff. The financial breakdown and the financial model for the social media channels flip when you start paying them for ads because they are incentivized to make you win so that you keep spending on ads. So
Yeah.
there's a better return on investment oftentimes when it's a limited resource amount. If you can do both, perfect world, do both. And then your best performing social media posts become your ad creatives. And that becomes
Yep.
the winning strategy right now.
Yep.
But, and that's, I mean, that'll timestamp this interview where in 2 years, I'm sure the winning ad creative is
Oh,
something different. But
I mean,
yeah,
it could
or two
change.
months. I don't,
Yeah, it
yeah.
could change next week. That's what I
Yeah.
was my next question was gonna be where do you think where do where are things going? And,
Mhm.
when we talk about potential like podcasts or, you know, doing starting something like that that's made more for like long form YouTube outside of a Sunday or just
Yeah.
kind of what we would consider like clip farming for social media. Do you feel like
Mhm.
that's still a good thing? I don't see a lot of churches doing that. I think I
Yeah.
see some bigger churches with podcasts and stuff. I still think it's a very valuable play. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
Um, One, do you think if a church or pastor has the margin to do that, that's still
Mhm.
a good play to run? And or where are you maybe seeing, prophetically you make a church or where are you kind of maybe seeing in your world things leaning towards?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of value that a podcast can drive. I think there's a lot of ways that a lead pastor having a podcast can be a massive win.
Yeah,
Not just going viral. Like if you want to do the go viral way where you react to cultural things and all that stuff, it's a bit of a slippery slope into just becoming the political commentator that also has a church, which
yeah.
different conversation. But what what I would say the like some other strategies and advantages to a podcast is you get to go deeper with your attenders. So you
Yeah.
just get to build a deeper relationship. It's a
Yeah.
discipleship channel.
Yep.
There's also in the business world this strategy that I know you know, where you bring your ideal avatar onto your
Yep.
podcast as a guest, and you like try to have a sales conversation
Yeah.
afterwards with them. Like, hey, do you have a marketing solution or
Yeah.
whatever you sell?
I
And as
mean,
pastors,
I wanna, translate that for some non-marketing people that
yeah.
you just said, Avatar, the movie, I love that movie. What
Yeah,
he's saying is
yeah.
you can utilize a podcast to reach a person or the people that you want to get in front of. So, for instance, say you're a senior pastor and you want to connect with business leaders,
Mhm.
council members,
Large
just
donors. Yeah,
large donors,
whatever.
people,
Yeah,
whatever. Or hey, you want to get people, you want to gather people's testimonies and their stories, but it's hard to coach them on telling. Hey, instead of coaching them and just putting them in front of a camera, sit them down, ask them questions, and pull the stories out of them. So that's what
yeah.
he was saying when basically you use podcasts to get people on that you want to build a relationship with.
Yeah, yeah, which is great, and, thank you for that
It worked.
translation.
Ah,
I live in the marketing world all the time,
yeah, I know. You,
so
me too.
yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not,
So, for everybody watching, the big difference between Chandler and I is Chandler serves churches, I serve
yes,
businesses that serve churches, so it's 2
yes,
di so
yes.
Chandler is better at translating to pastors than I am
Dillon
on
talks to me all day, and I talk to pastors and church leaders all day. So
correct, yeah,
we're
yeah.
in the same world, but just a little bit different.
Yep, yeah, good friends. But no,
Yeah,
that's awesome. I agree. I think a podcast play can be huge if the podcast or if the pastor has the thing. What I will say is don't go into it expecting to be the next Carey Nieuwhof or the next Craig Groeschel. Like,
right.
because they had this amazing advantage that also the Bible app had, which was they were first to market.
Yeah,
And them and Andy Stanley, their leadership podcasts are 10 years old now. And back then, there was literally 3 leadership
nothing.
podcasts
There's
in the
nothing.
Christian space. Yeah. And everybody followed those. So, like, if you're thinking, "Oh, I can, get a podcast with a couple 100,000 downloads an episode or whatever," it's probably not gonna happen. Like, that podcast isn't gonna be born today unless you're
Yeah,
just constantly trend jacking,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
like,
I mean,
all that kind of stuff.
there are strategies. However, I want to say
Yeah.
this, just if someone's hearing this and they're maybe thinking, oh well, okay, well I wanted to start a podcast, but
Yeah.
it's not worth it. No, no, it is worth it. There's
It
actually
is.
really in the podcast space, especially in the Christian leadership, whatever kind of world, there's not a lot of podcasts, like especially not active, ongoing.
Mhm.
Because what's the stat? I forget what the stat is. It's like 80 or 90% of podcasts don't ever make it past like the 20th episode.
Yeah, yeah, very true.
So if you're
Yes.
gonna do it, just do it and commit to it forever.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and find different ways to make it worth your time. Like,
Yeah,
if it is gleaning stories
yeah,
from your church, that maybe it's the story of the one once a month, where it's like the one
yeah,
person whose life has been changed at your church, you have them on the podcast. Like, whatever that ends up looking like, it's great. So, but yeah, it's just yeah, it's a question of resource allocation sometimes for, like,
yeah.
what strategy you're using and all that kind of stuff. I
So
one
then the
There's
next
a hot
question would
take.
be,
Yeah,
yeah, the
go
next
ahead.
question would be, what do you think's next? Do you have any ideas, or have you seen anything
Yeah.
that's like, okay, this is where things are leaning?
So, audio podcasts are
Yep.
really, really hard to grow. Like,
Mhm.
audio just doesn't have the exposure that something like YouTube does.
Okay.
So, I actually, I spent the last 8 years thinking about how to grow Carey's audience and then Craig's audience. So, and what I knew is that if we're gonna double this thing in a year, it's gonna come from YouTube, it's not gonna come from audio. Because, like, no matter what we changed on the audio podcast, no matter how much ad spend we spent on a specific episode, or like running a lead magnet that sent people to a specific episode,
Yeah.
audio only varied by 20 to 30% per episode,
Okay.
where YouTube could 8x or 10x. So I actually think if you're
Yeah.
talking the content world, getting really good at YouTube content is probably the future for churches in that organic content space. What?
Well, it's just funny. No, that's great. I 1000% agree.
Yeah.
It's just funny that it, to me that just shows how truly valuable YouTube is. Let me ask you this
Mhm.
then.
Yeah.
If you if you were consulting a church, or and again, you can talk about this, we'll post this later. But if a church was like, "Hey, we can only pick one platform," or if you were saying, "Hey, just pick one platform," do you think it's more valuable for a church to put their time, energy, money, margin into YouTube or into Meta?
Oof. Oh, that's not even fair.
It's a
Gosh. I think I'd probably still do Meta,
okay.
just because you can get a more guaranteed you're talking about paid ads on Meta, right?
Well,
No.
Sure, we can talk about I would love both
Yeah.
organically.
Okay.
So let's start with organic.
Okay.
If a church asked you, "Hey, should we focus we can only pick one platform for,
Mhm.
right now. Should we pick Google or excuse me, YouTube, or should we pick Meta?"
Meta is including Instagram and Facebook?
Yes, sir.
That is such an unfair
I know
dichotomy.
my answer, but
Yeah.
I'm
I
down to start an argument.
I
I'm
I've
kinda
seen
hoping
ch
you
yeah, I've seen churches do both well. I That's the
Well,
thing, like,
yeah.
yeah, like, really small, like, church plant, I think Meta,
Yes.
because, like,
Yes.
Facebook groups, like, it is I've seen some
That's good.
thriving small
That's
churches
good.
with, like, a
I like that.
Facebook group where, like, the buy, sell, trade thing is, like, it's a church-wide buy,
Yep,
sell, trade, and people love it.
yep.
Yeah. So, stuff like
And
that.
still so many people you're only the second person I've ever heard mention that play, and that is still an untapped
Yes.
little strategy that is pretty simple.
Yes, yeah, and it's incredible. Like, just get your people helping each other out on a Facebook group and it, like, explodes. Anyways, so there's that. Instagram seems to be, like, working really well for some, like, young adult ministries, so that's the other reason why I'm like, Meta might slightly edge out YouTube, but not by much, would be my answer, I think.
Yeah, and organically. So, I would agree. I think church plant, young church, smaller rural town,
Mhm,
I'm gonna go Meta because it is more familiar. It's it's a little bit simpler, you know, all that stuff. It's easier to learn. I would
mhm,
say if you're a well-established church, you've got a staff team, you're 500 plus.
yeah,
Um, I think YouTube all day because
yeah. That's
I'm a
probably
numbers guy.
that's
I'm a numbers guy.
yeah,
So for me, everyone's on Google, everyone's on YouTube.
mhm,
It's bigger that those two platforms are bigger than all the other platforms together. So
yeah,
I'm gonna argue YouTube all day because, it's more evergreen. That's where people are actually searching, not just
mhm,
scrolling.
yeah,
And I would argue that with ads as well. But again, that's just, at the end of the day, do
yeah.
something. Something's better than
Yes,
nothing.
correct. Yeah, yeah,
The problem
yeah.
is
Yeah,
a lot of
and
churches don't do
And the
anything.
other thing, like, it's not necessarily a dichotomy. Oftentimes, if you're doing YouTube, you can also repurpose that on socials and vice versa.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yes.
So in a perfect world, you're repurposing content and hitting all of them. Like, that's
Yes.
best case scenario. But yeah, especially if you're a large church. Yeah. But maybe we can have a higher level conversation here that you and I both will totally agree on this. The the most important lever in all of the channels is the content quality. So it is
Okay.
how good is like the 30-second clip or the 60-minute sermon, how good is the content? That's the most important thing. And even for ads, it's how good is your lead magnet offer, which for
Yeah.
everybody who doesn't know, a lead magnet is just something you give away for free in exchange for somebody's contact information. So like
Yep.
how good is that free thing that you're giving away? Because what we've seen is if it's not a 10 out of 10 lead magnet, it's basically worthless. So,
Mhm.
like the difference in downloads is exponential
Yeah.
between an absolutely amazing lead magnet and like a good lead magnet. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and we can talk more about that too, which is more like kind of you and I's world that we live in. But yeah,
Well,
um,
and I also think that that is that's a great opportunity, and I think it's a play that's really when it comes to churches that I'm working with, that's if we're gonna do meta ads, that's the road we're gonna get down to,
yeah,
and it's we're gonna build a page, we're gonna find whatever problem, and what I usually do is I'll ask the pastors, "Hey, what's the one if you could only pick one problem, one ministry, whatever you want to call it, that to talk about what is it?
mhm,
Is it finances? Is it debt? Is it anxiety? Is it parenting, marriage, relationship, all that? Then
yep,
let's let's focus on that lane organically and your ads, and let's just help people first, and
yeah,
then once we help them, we serve them, we build the trust, awareness, then, hey, why don't you, if you don't have a church, you need to be in a church. Like you need
Yeah.
to, whatever.
Yep.
Which is the play that almost every other industry runs. Um,
And the church doesn't.
it's
Yeah.
really, it's,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you this transition or kind of just a little bit of a different thought. When it comes to what you've experienced and seen working with Craig and Carey, and then obviously, Carey's audience is mostly pastors, church leaders, that
Mhm.
type of world. Where are you seeing the separation? Like, what are some of the things? And we both know there's a lot of things. We're not going to get into every single things, but what are you kind of seeing? What's in the top of your mind? The things that are separating the churches that um, are excelling. And when I mean excelling, I don't necessarily mean super growth but they're
Mhm.
they're they're doing things well. They're
Yeah.
maybe they are reaching people at whatever level. Maybe that's on a Sunday. Maybe that's through events or different ministries. Kind of
Mhm.
maybe talk to us about some things that you're seeing that maybe not everyone else would be able to see or know.
Yeah. I don't know if I have the best answer for that, but I have two resources that answer that question pretty
Okay.
well. One would be Carey's 2026 church trends. So
Okay.
if you just search church trends Carey Nieuwhof, it'll be the
We
first
can
thing to
put the
come
link.
up.
We'll put the link in the videos and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So Carey every year does like, here are the blank
Oh, I
disruptive
saw it.
church trends.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So like this year, some of the highlights and high level ones are like young Gen Z women are leaving the church and Gen Z men are coming in really fast. A lot
crazy.
of that is on the heels of the Charlie Kirk stuff.
Yeah,
The big one that every pastor is freaking out about is your people are being discipled by algorithms more than they're being discipled by Christians. So, which is terrifying, but the math makes sense. They spend
yeah,
1 hour a week in church and they spend 49 hours a week on their smartphone and in some kind of algorithmically driven app. So the algorithms are discipling you, causing you to reform your thinking, your habits, everything way more than your church is. How do we manage that as a church? All that
yeah.
stuff. So that's one resource. Definitely check that out. The other resource is this book right here, Lead Like It Matters. I don't point to it enough, but basically this book is just 7 leadership principles from a church that has it. The original version of the book was called It, and Craig released it back in
Oh,
2008.
yeah.
This is a republished, updated, like added 40,000 words version. Um,
That's
and it
awesome.
is like the best book on leading a healthy, growing church that has it of the like just ever. I read the whole thing in one sitting because I just couldn't, like, it was so good. So, I was biased because I also worked there, but, it
I mean,
it
not
really
not
does.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not too hard to be that biased. I mean,
Yeah.
I will, I think I shared this with you. This is one of my, name drop claim to fame moments because so I am from Dillon is in
Yep.
Edmond. That's where I'm from. So
Yep. Great
I
little
was a
town.
part of the church that was Life.Church's second campus.
Mhm.
And so in high school, I was there when it transitioned, and then I actually went to the young adult service, and I forget who it was Jamie Smith, and there was another guy that was like the young adult pastor that we would go to. We would sneak in as high school students, like the college, they had a huge college ministry back then. It was crazy. But I
Nice.
actually went to the very first ever event. I think it was even before they had a church service in the building at I forget what campus, the one in not on I-35, but the one they built
Oh,
in Edmond.
yeah.
It was a
The
Five
OKC
Iron
campus.
Frenzy
Yeah.
concert. There's
That's
probably some people
awesome.
listening to this, and they're like, "I don't know who Five Iron Frenzy is." Well, you should look them up because I was there with it was Five Iron Frenzy in Fillmore. It was it was a great it was a great concert. Anyways, okay,
That's incredible.
let me ask you this:
Yeah.
if right now, if you were, which we are, if you could tell pastors one, two, three things that that really matter or they need to lean into, what would that be? Like, what would you say? Hey, if there's one thing that you've got to lean into now, it's
Mhm. Yeah. So My ministry journey's been interesting. I was with Carey for 4 years, then I went to
Yeah,
Life.Church, and then now I'm back on my own, like, running my own company, but I also like, Carey's one of my clients, and I love
yeah.
getting to work with him. I'm on his team, like, all the things. So, Carey is writing a book on AI right now, and how AI is going to impact the future church, and it's
Yeah.
not like, "Here's the prompt you need to use to do X, Y, and Z," or whatever. It's like, what are the cultural impacts that our
Ooh,
artificial intelligence is going to have on our society, and how are we going to pastor through that? So like there's three major shifts. Some of the big ones are like what happens if 20% of the population does lose a job, and it takes a few years
wow.
before society
Yeah,
comes around to figure out
yeah.
how to get them new jobs. And so I think just seeing ahead with AI is not our default instinct as pastors, because most of us, the average age is like 59 and a half, and we're somewhat like tech cautious.
Yeah.
But man, I think we've got to be paying attention to this artificial intelligence wave. Block already laid off half their staff, like 4,000 people. Like, it's
Wow.
the layoffs are starting.
Yeah.
And I think a year from now, you and I are going to be talking about like, hey man, we got 5% of our church is now unemployed, and and then we have these hyper wealthy few that
Yep.
own stock in an AI company, and it's like, how are we pastoring that? And then there's some other trends that are happening with AI that are pretty concerning, that speak directly into churches. One of which is Facebook just bought an app that basically makes death not impactful. Like, and what I mean by that is, it's an app where before you die, you talk to it for like 10 or 15 minutes. It makes a virtual avatar of you, and then your family can talk to you after you're dead. It's just an AI
What?
version of yourself.
Bro,
So,
I missed that one.
oh, it's bad, bro. It's really bad.
That's great.
Yeah, so worth looking up after. But so, this is where I'm going to get a little vulnerable, but my dad passed away when I was 12, and I
Okay.
have one video of him. It was right before
Yeah.
smartphones when he passed away.
Okay.
So, I have one video of him, and I treasure that video more than, like, you'd have to there's
Yeah.
a lot in life that I would not give up before giving
Yeah.
up that one video. So, I know how detrimental a software like that would be to my mental health, just because I'm a pastor. I'm relatively, like, mental health conscious,
Mhm.
and I don't know if 15-year-old Dylan could resist that type of app. Like, so
No.
our people are going to be actively engaging with and having relationships with their dead relatives, and we as pastors are going to have to pastor through death when death actually isn't a thing anymore. And it's like, and like, people are still living with this weird relationship that's not actually a relationship, it's just a computer. And like, how are we gonna manage this? It's gonna be a new mental health, like, crisis that we're
Yeah.
gonna have to build in for. So, there are a few things like that AI is gonna have a pretty massive impact on society, and, like, we as pastors are gonna have to pivot and edit that. Probably not the answer you were expecting from me, but
No, that's
yeah.
no, that's absolutely, um,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole 'nother podcast.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yes.
a
Yeah.
whole 'nother episode.
Mhm.
Okay, as we kinda wrap up here,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, what do you feel like is and I'm not this isn't calling anyone out, just more of a general sense, what do you feel like is as a whole, the biggest mistake the church and or pastors are missing or not taking advantage of when it comes to the platforms that we have, like
Mhm.
whether it's social media or AI, YouTube, etc. What do you feel like is the biggest miss that you're seeing?
Yeah, this is incredibly practical. So I learned this from Dustin Schledowitz, who's the campus pastor of Life.Church Omaha, one of our
Okay.
fastest growing campuses. Um, what he does with his staff, and I don't know if he still does this, but he did this for a solid few years. Every week on Sunday, every staff member, and then I think they trained core volunteers to do this too, like key volunteers. Every single one of them would have to come up with 3 names that they were gonna text and go to lunch with that week from Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And and what that does is it requires, Dustin does it too. Every week, the campus teams are deepening relationships with their core volunteers, first time guests,
Yeah.
random people. And it's every week those relationships are getting deeper. And it's like one more thing. It is one more task to add to a church staff member's thing, but like to do list. But man, what is more important than your staff having a
Yep.
culture of meeting, deepening relationships, all that kind of stuff? So, and oftentimes that's where the ministry happens. It's like
Yeah.
it's not anything like that. So, um, that's like it's a marketing channel in a sense of you have a bunch of people in your live event and you need to deepen the relationship with
Yeah.
them. But it's not like Facebook ads or whatever, but, I mean, if a church is listening and they haven't hired you yet, they need to, so I'll just tell them that as well, but
Thank you for the free ad spot. We'll clip that
absolutely.
to the free spots. Well, and let
Yeah.
me and I want you maybe to go in just a little bit, even if we have to spend the last few minutes, um,
Mhm.
because that we were just talking about technology AI,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing and noticing and hearing that as we're able to automate AI, outsource all as much stuff, that the personal connections, the authenticity, the live events,
Yeah.
those are those are what matter the most.
Yep.
Would you agree?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Carey's line is, I think it's the church's future direction is human connection. And as per classic Carey Nieuwhof, has the banger one-liner on that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but I think he's right, and that's totally true. So, but yeah, it's,
Which
yeah.
which I don't think is bad. And I think
No,
that's
it's good. Yeah.
even for what having when thinking back when I was in ministry, and then some of the things that I know now, and you always go, okay, what would I've done differently, etc. And I'm like, man, what can you, the things that aren't ministry, people that people worship, pastoring, prayer, all those things, what can you outsource, automate,
Mhm.
hire build a software, hire a company, to manage your books or your whatever
Yeah.
it is. And then that way, the people that are on your staff at your church, the focus is the ministry, it's the pastoring, it's getting in the hospitals and the schools and going to lunches and the
Yeah.
coffees and going to people's houses and praying for them. I feel
Mhm.
like those are the things, like, man, if I there's so many things that I do for my business now that I wish I would have known when I was on church staff, because I'd been like, hey, we should have let's let that company do this, let's automate this. And then our really most of our staff it's just pastors.
Yes.
Who are you connecting with? Who are we, what teams are we building? People we pouring into, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's a secret, that is so weird to see, but, like, the larger the church, the more likely it is that you end up on the calendar of the campus pastor. Like,
Yes.
it's so weird, but, like, Life Church Omaha, 5,000 people on an Easter or whatever, like, one of their newer campuses, Dustin's met with a good portion of the Omaha people that I talk to, like,
Wow.
oftentimes multiple times, like, and it's they go more personal, not less, and so that's kind of a strategy there of a lot of multi-site churches and stuff is more personal, not less personal, so I
Yeah.
love what they're doing, and I'm just,
Awesome.
you and I are both just here to cheer churches on and help however
Yep.
we can, but yeah,
Yep.
I love that.
Right. What is some advice that you want to give to pastors that might be a little uncomfortable, but they need to hear it?
As a Enneagram 3,
Oh Lord, don't. Okay.
I'm
I have to cut
sorry.
that part out. Just kidding. Go
As
ahead.
as an Enneagram 3, stop building the kingdom of me.
Mm,
Stop doing it, man. The best pastors, the best churches, the best, like, all of us, like, we cannot keep building our own kingdoms, and it's not worth the return on investment. Like, so becoming the next influencer, becoming the next whatever, everything in society is giving us a gravitational pull towards you need to amplify your platform, build your thing, do you, whatever. it's just not worth the return on investment or the risk involved with building a personal platform on the side of building a church. Like, just focus on building a church. If the personal platform comes because your church gets that big, oh well, steward it and know
Yeah.
that it's dangerous. Like, that's the message. So, I just, as a guy who, like, my first 4 years of my career were all about just what can I do to become the next whatever.
Yeah.
I read this book called The Second Mountain, and it, like, destroyed me on that front. It took me a year to get through the book because every chapter just ripped
Wow.
my soul apart. Um, it's so good. But like, I struggle with it every day of, like, and, like, we all, I think, as pastors, we're drawn to the stage, we're drawn to all that, but, like, we've gotta put down that popularity, that I wanna be impressive, wanna be the influencer, all that stuff, and we've gotta focus on just taking the low place, serving other people, committing to our community, like that kind of stuff. So,
I love it.
yeah.
And then if you I want to do some shout outs. Maybe
Mhm.
give a shout out to, maybe a person, organization that, you know, recently that you've come across that that have, that's impacted you, that you've been impressed with, that's
Mhm.
maybe, just overall that you're like, man, if you're in this space, you're a pastor, church leader, Christian leader,
Yep.
and dude, you gotta follow these. You gotta check out this. I know you've already shouted out Carey and Craig, which they have amazing resources. But is there just anybody else you're like, man,
Yep.
if who is it? What is it?
Yeah. It's these guys right here, this yellow book. It's called Leadership Pathway is the organization. Dave Miller is the guy who him
Okay.
and his wife Kristen started it. And they do residencies for developing Gen Z inside of churches. And it
Hmm.
solves two problems. One is it develops the next generation and gives them a 2-year runway into ministry where they go from, like, completely not hireable and not competent to, like, one of the most recent residents that I heard about had 17 job offers leaving their
Wow.
residency. So, like, incredible development path there, but it also solves the staffing crisis that most churches are having right now, where, like, takes 2 years to hire somebody, like, we gotta hire a search group for $20,000, like, it's a whole thing. If you have a residency in your church that's, like, constantly developing the next generation of leaders, you don't have that problem. But most residencies go poorly because, as Leadership Pathway sees with the residencies, something like 90 some percent of residencies end up with the church wanting to fire the resident or the resident wanting to quit at some point in the 2 years. And that's
Yeah.
where Leadership Pathway, myself included, came alongside and said, hey, don't quit. You need to stay in this because, like, ministry gets hard. You've got what it takes to grind through. Here are some practical ways. So that's an organization that I love and just always like to shout out. They're always like, yeah. So any pastor that has either a staffing issue or a Gen Z, like a lack of Gen Z engagement issue,
Yeah.
heavily recommend them. So yeah.
Awesome. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else that you
I don't think so, man. I've mentioned a lot of people today. So
no, it's great. I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
you're I think sometimes no one likes name droppers, but it, at the same
Yeah.
time, we're in the life, and like God's been faithful and put you in crazy spaces and
Mhm.
in great organizations as well as myself, and
Yeah.
that's why you have your perspective and do what you
Mhm.
do. And so I want to say thank you for man, thanks for all that you do, for all your wisdom. You've helped me and been an encouragement, and just even watching your content and helping me, challenging me to level up my, level up my content, level up my thinking. And I've already, I've learned so much from you, and we really haven't known each other that long, but it's one of those like, man, this
Yeah.
guy's doing great things, and you're going to do great things. I'm excited, and I also want to say if you are listening to this and you have an organization, nonprofit, a business that you serve pastors, that you products with pastors, that man, check out what Dillon is doing. Check out his website. We'll drop the links and all that fun stuff, and make sure you follow him on all the platforms. Come hang out on LinkedIn because it's pretty lonely over there.
I know. It's
We're
just
just
us,
trying to
man.
it's just like I got like four friends that are on LinkedIn, and we all just like each other's posts.
Correct.
Like we
Yes.
can all
Yeah.
count on each other. And you think Dillon
Uh-uh.
does better than me, but I can at least count on like 2 or 3 of my friends. It's like my dad and mom on Facebook. I know
Yep.
if nothing else, my parents are going to post on that. But
Yeah.
if you are someone who your organization, your business serves pastors in any way, and you want to reach and get in front of more pastors and church leaders, Dillon is the only guy. There is literally no one else. And he is amazing at what he's doing, and he's got some great systems and processes and can really help you, and has been part of some great organizations. So I want to say thank you for being on, and we will talk soon. We'll probably do another episode as well, and make sure that you like and subscribe, and we will talk to you guys later.
Thanks, man.